Right. It wasn't as wide. Yeah. So when you start out that exercise, the floppy, wide vibrato helps to kind of relax your hand, okay? And then you just you just make it narrower and narrower until you're at your, you just need a little bit back and forth, okay? So let's try that. We're going to go we're going to do the 4. 1, 2, let's on second finger because that's the easiest. Okay? So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we're going to start up. 1 and 2. We're going to start forward, back, okay? 3 and 4 and forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. Okay, all right, I see a couple of different motions that people are doing. When you're doing vibrato, you're going to get a lot nicer vibrato if this kind of stays straight, like you have a ruler strapped to it, and go from here, bend your arm from here. Or not bend it, but just let your arm turn, like you're turning a doorknob. Everybody put your hand out like you're going to turn a doorknob. Now turn the knob, turn it back, turn the knob. Okay, that's what you want to do. All right, you're not going to turn the knob like that, are you? Well, if you got a whole bunch of stuff in your arms, you're going to maybe do that. But you're going to go up and you're going to take the knob and you turn it. So that's what that's kind of what you want to do when you're doing this kind of vibrato. You just let your arm be kind of floppy. Okay, it's not squeezing in here, but just letting your arm turn. Let's try that again. Okay. Think about having a ruler strapped to your wrist. And I've actually done this to some students. For some students. Okay. So you're going to go, so keep this fairly straight and you're going to go like that. So you're going to go from here. Okay. So try, I see your hand going. Let this be one piece. It's like this is one whole piece. You can't turn that unless you do what? Exactly, all right? You can't turn it unless you're doing this. And it might help you to bring your elbow out a little bit farther when you do that. And let your whole arm go down. And floppy would be really good for you to start out with. Nice and floppy. Just overdo it. And it's a relaxed motion. Don't squeeze. Just let your hand do it. I know, let your hand do it. I've been doing it for most of my life. It's like, that's all you have to do. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right. And just relax. Be nice and relaxed. Okay. All right. So let's do the floppy. We'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 3, and 4, and up, back, up, back, up, back, up, back. Fingers close. Close. I'm going to do 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yeah. Just let it, the purpose of this exercise is to get it nice and loose. So you're going to go from, you're going to just place your hand on the string. Now, you're going to go from here. You're going to turn that door, you're going to turn that doorknob. There you go. flop it up. Just flop your hand down, like you're putting your forefinger down. Okay, and flop it back. Okay, and try to get a little bit loose here. There you go. All right. Okay, now let's do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4.
I almost made a rhythm page as a copy, but I didn't. But the two most common rhythms is the long, short, and then the short, long. So, right, and then the opposite. And you would do that over and over again, and then hopefully you'd be able to then play it like that. Okay?
And sometimes I will, I'll use different, I'll play, like if I have a 16th note passage that's difficult, I'll play, like they're, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If they're in 4s, then I'll play 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I play them in groups of 3. And then I'll play them in groups of, try to play them in groups of 5. It really messes with your brain to try to do that. And another thing to do is start with a couple of notes, add another one. You know, practice it until you get those 3 or 4 notes. Add the next one. You know, go through, play those 5, add the next one, play those 6. You know, so every time you're repeating, then you have to go back and you have to get into that passage. So you have to play what comes before so that you can get into that passage. So those are some tricks that I use.
And basically the reasoning behind doing rhythms and bowings and things like that is to get you to think, to get you to concentrate. A lot of times when we practice, we lose that concentration. But in reality, we need to be super focused on what we're doing. And by spicing it up, by adding these rhythms, by doing the different bowings, we're making our mind think. We're keeping on track of the problem. So that's the whole point of doing that. On the left-hand side, once you can play basically your notes, you can get through your piece. You have to figure out your exact tempo. What do you want to do? You're going to put down your dynamics, make sure that you're doing your fortes and your pianos wherever they're marked. You can talk about style and phrasing and vibrato. And then that's how you finally get to your final product for your performance. So that's what we should be doing in our practice. And you might not be doing that final playthrough for a long time. So if you set your goal in the beginning of your practice, well, maybe I'm just going to work on these passages today, you know, and then I'll work on running through this section where this passage is, and I can get that into tempo. Well, you've done a good job for that day. You've done a really good practice.
When I get orchestra, well, and probably when you guys do too, when you get orchestra music, when they send you music for, you know, the next concert, you don't usually sit there and play through the whole thing. You look through and see, you know, well, you might kind of play through, but then you figure out what passages that you have to work on.
What looks hard?
Yeah, what looks hard, you know, and then you sit down and you work that out. So when you go to rehearsal, you already have some idea of you know, how, or some competency with that spot, or those spots.
So really to answer your question about, I know, a long time ago, how to prepare for playing in a performance, it really boils down to how well did you practice. There's a well-known quote that says when you perform that you only play at about 80% of your potential. That's a C, right? That's not a good grade. So in order to play at more proficiency, we need to actually prepare, not at 100%, we need to play at 120% in our practice. That way when we lose that degree of proficiency, we're still in an 100% range. And a lot of that means, well, how are we going to approach this? If you practice, if you put in as much time and effort as you can, you're guaranteed to have a good performance. And you shouldn't be nervous with that. Does anybody else have any questions about practicing or performing?
Do you have like physical aids that help with practicing, maybe just repetition or something?
There's repetition, but you do have to have the purpose with the repetition. And I think the rhythms and the bowings really help with that.
Yeah, when you're repeating something, you need to figure out why you know, you have to be thinking while you're doing it. You have to be thinking about what you're doing. If you're not thinking about what you're doing and how you're doing it, then it doesn't do you any good. You're just going, oh, you know, well, you might as well not be doing it because it's not going to benefit you.
Always ask yourself the question, why am I repeating this? As long as you know the why, I think you can figure out the rest of it.
You know, what am I trying to accomplish?
You never know what, you know, like you were pointing out, you never know, you know, what kind of emotional state of the mind depends on your day, on what's going on in your life, in your family, and various other subjects. And that greatly affects how you play and how you're able to cope with the fear. So that being said, you know, it's really important to be extremely confident by practicing well and enough. But at the same time, you always have to be mentally prepared as to what's coming. And one of the ways to gain that self-confidence is trying to overachieve yourself in a practice ropes. And you can think of the athlete who is preparing to be in a contest of the weightlifting. And you know, if for a contest they have to lift 100-pound weight, chances are they're going to be exercising with a 200-pound weight, so they don't have a problem lifting 100 pounds once when they're in front of the millions of people on TV.
What was your question? Sight reading is always good.
Excellent.
You know,
Sight reading is always good.
most of you probably tried out for Region, right? Region Orchestra? No? And, you know, they have that dreaded sight reading part. We have to practice sight reading. It's an acquired art. But the problem with practicing sight reading is you can only practice it one time and then you're not sight reading anymore. So you have to have a constant supply of new music to look at. But it's very, very important.
So basically all I have to do is read pretty much everything that I like what it gives you, and you won't have a problem.
There's a book that they use,
Oh,
a special sight reading book.
Oh, you need to find the sight reading book.
Sight reading makes the brain work quicker, so to speak. So it's like a puzzle. It's really a training for the brain, and you learn how to think quicker and employ the technique quicker. So it's extremely good. Now there's one point that I would like to bring in terms of the idea of practicing is that how do we divide our time in practicing in terms of the pieces? Say we had an hour to practice, 1 hour per day to practice. And I know I said, you know, you should not limit yourself to the time, you should limit yourself to the, you know, type of product you are at the end of the day. But let's for a second forget about that and let's think about the time, 1 hour. And we have to worry about a scale, etude, orchestra literature, and finally your private piece for your private teacher. So those 4 components, how would you think we can divide it within an hour span? Is there any ideas? How would volunteers, how would you divide your hour?
what was the second thing that you said?
We have scales, we have etudes, technical studies, we have orchestra that you have to do for your school, and we have a private piece that you're preparing for your teacher. How would you divide it? What do you think is the most important?
5 minutes for the scales, 15 for the second, and then 20 for the back.
It's a pretty reasonable assumption, I would say.
20 minutes left.
No, 20 for the two.
You wanna kind of,
I devote a lot more time to the warm-up and to the technical side.
yes.
Because if you can play your scales and etudes, you can play just about anything.
That's right.